On this week's episode of the Brew and Shavers SEC Sports Podcast, we're talking about Lane Kiffin. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? We've got an update on Darren and I's trip to Baton Rouge, including a must-stop place if you're traveling down there to get some incredible food. And as always, we've got our 4-down territory. An eventful weekend for Darren and I as we traveled down to Baton Rouge to watch the LSU Tigers face off against the Arkansas Razorbacks with the coveted boot trophy up for grabs. And as things went, LSU maintained possession of that trophy, as they have 9 out of the last 10 meetings, Darren.
Nice. That's a nice thing. I know it hasn't been the season LSU fans are looking for, but to have something like that where you can say, not only did we do it, but we did it like we kept the tradition going. We hung on to it. That's a beautiful thing. You got to have those things when the season's not going the way you want it to. So good stuff. Good for LSU.
Yeah, a win's a win. It was a gorgeous day weather-wise. Everything was wonderful on the LSU campus, from the tailgating to the band to the pregame activities to the police directing traffic. Everybody, the crowd was wonderful. We just had a great time. And there's some shots that Darren's showing right there before the game. I think, is that the band on the field right there?
That's the band getting ready right at the start of the game, or right before the game starts.
The Golden Band from Tigerland. Boy, they're top-notch, aren't they?
It's so incredible. And just that whole everything they do, when they walk out and they all start together, and then, a section stops at each, and then they spread out and basically take the entire field. It's a really, really cool thing to see.
So we left about 4:45 Saturday morning. It was an 11:45 kickoff. That put us down relatively just a little after 8 or so that we got down there. No traffic issues. But when you go down to Baton Rouge, anywhere where you go to Baton Rouge and further south in Louisiana, you're going to have the opportunity to eat some of the best food that you've ever eaten. And we had that opportunity in Baton Rouge, but especially on the way back. We cut across on Highway 190, which you pick up at Opelousas. We came down 49, hit 190. So we went back that way, and we had to stop in Krotz Springs, which is maybe, if you've sped through there before, you don't have a fond memory of it. You've probably received a ticket.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's no shortage of places to get Boudin in that town. And one that we stopped at that was recommended to us was Billy's Homemade Boudin and Cracklin'. It was just amazing food. As you can see, we ordered and we ate in there, but there were people coming in. If you see the picture on the screen, the whole refrigerated area of Boudin with shopping baskets, and they were just taking it out of the refrigerator, putting it in their shopping basket to take home with them, which we're going to remember next time, Darren, to bring a cooler with us.
We'll have a cooler. That's exactly right.
But we ate inside, and we tried their Boudin balls. Darren got a picture of one. Yes, it is as big as it looks. It was absolutely amazing. The taste, it was cooked perfectly. Some of the best Boudin that I've had. So next time you drive through Krotz Springs, number one, obey the speed limit.
Absolutely. A couple miles under wouldn't be a bad thing. But
and number two, stop at Billy's.
Yeah. And you're going to think when you see it that really this is, but trust us, it is out of the way. It's not what you typically think of if you're thinking I'm looking for a place to eat, but it is worth it because honestly, not only was the Boudin top notch, but they have Boudin and Cracklins in their name, and it's earned. And the Cracklins were absolutely incredible as well. Very, very good. You will be glad you stopped.
When we first got there, you remember, Darren, there were a few other people in there, not a whole lot.
Not a whole lot.
By the time we sat down to eat, there was a line going throughout the entire place.
Yeah, so, it wrapped around. Yeah, it was really incredible.
Which is definitely a sign that you're at the right place.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So put that on your list. If you're
Yep.
traveling in that area, be sure to stop at Billy's and get some Boudin. You will not be disappointed.
Definitely.
So let's move into our week 12 reactions. A lot of things happening all over the SEC. None bigger probably right now, Darren, than the saga with Lane Kiffin.
Absolutely.
Coming out today was a story in which it claimed that Ole Miss officials have given Lane Kiffin until the Egg Bowl. I believe that's November 28th, maybe.
That
The
sounds
Egg
correct.
Bowl to give them a decision. Remember, they've offered him an extension. He has not signed it. An extension, I think, that would make him the highest paid coach.
I believe that's right.
Also, what we learned today, as we're recording on Monday, is that Kiffin's family is in Baton Rouge touring the city. They've already traveled down to Gainesville. So it looks like Kiffin has three choices here: Ole Miss, Florida, LSU. And when you think about that, Darren, what do you think is going to happen here?
The thing about it is, I know it's got to be a tough spot for a coach to be in because I mean he's building something there at Ole Miss. He has accomplished some incredible things in Oxford. Now there's still the issues with winning the big game and the whole big game lane thing, but as far as program, as far as culture, he even in his or post game conference this week talked about how they retained two starters from last year, picked up a ton of people from the transfer portal, but he retained all of his assistant coaches. That's building culture, and that allows you to have the kind of year they're having, even though you only retained two starters. So he's doing some incredible things there at Oxford. So there's that dilemma of, do I stay here and build my thing? But then when you look at, I mean, and this is, I don't mean this negatively. I'll even throw Vanderbilt in what I'm about to say. We're not talking about Vanderbilt, Kentucky, Missouri. We're talking about Gainesville and Baton Rouge that are now calling. That's next level. That's not, even though he's building something incredible in Oxford, how much more can he build in those two places? Just simply because of, I mean, the history of the programs, if nothing else. There's so many more opportunities. It's got to be a tough spot for him to be in. I don't. You would think with there being ultimatums and family involved and all this kind of stuff, maybe he doesn't know where he's going, but he's going. You would think, but we've had that conversation before where it looked like didn't know where he was going, but he was going, and he stayed right there. So he's really, he's keeping it up in the air, but it's got to be a tough spot. And I, as much as I respect what he's done in Oxford, and as much as I respect that program, whatever ultimately he decides, if both those programs truly are making him an offer, unless you're an Ole Miss fan, I get it if you're an Ole Miss fan. Outside of being an Ole Miss fan, I don't think you could blame him. Nobody's going to look at him and think it's a dumb move if he goes to either one of those places.
Opportunity is a word that you use, Darren, and I think that's the key word here
Yeah,
because money's not going to be the issue. He's going to be offered about the same at all three schools.
absolutely.
The question is, where does he think gives him the most opportunity? Has he
Mm-hmm.
reached the ceiling at Ole Miss?
Right.
Can he get more opportunity at Florida or LSU? That's going to be the underlying question.
Yeah.
But Darren, it sure isn't looking like he's going to stay at Ole Miss when
Right.
your school gives you an ultimatum like, look, we've got to have an answer by this date. That's usually not a good sign, even though anything could happen here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me ask you this question: as an LSU fan, if that ultimately is the final call, does that work for you, Lane Kiffin in Baton Rouge?
Yeah, they should have hired him the last time instead of Brian Kelly.
Oof, there's some truth in that.
Now, there was a point where no one was really interested in Kiffin. He
Oh,
had a
absolutely.
bad reputation. Everyone knew great coach, bad
Mm-hmm.
reputation. He had some demons that he was
Yep.
dealing with, some issues that were really plaguing him. The debacle, the 1 year at Tennessee, and
Oof,
then
that was
taking
rough.
off. I think Paul Feinbaum refers to that as that was just a flyover. Uh,
Yeah.
you know, alienating that fan base.
Yeah.
He really had to go down a road. I think it was Florida Atlantic is where he was
Yep.
at for a brief
FAU.
time.
Yep.
But really, it was, I think, when he went to Alabama in that time with Saban that really started getting him on a better path forward. And
Absolutely.
from every indication that I see and hear and listening to those who cover Ole Miss football, Kiffin is a different person. Uh,
Absolutely.
his stay in Oxford has been very healthy and healing for him. And so I was trying to think who was saying it today. Oh, I think it was Matt Moscana who was saying, two things can be true at the same time. He can love Ole Miss, he can love
Absolutely.
Oxford, but he can also say, I've got greater opportunities at one of these other schools.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree completely, and I think he would be I think he would be a great fit at LSU in Baton Rouge. I think it would be a good decision for him. I don't know if he brings Coach O back as his D line coach. Just a thought. Uh, who knows? But I think he would be a great fit. Of course, everybody in Gainesville is sitting around saying, "Well, he'd be a great fit here too." And that's the dilemma we're in. They think he'd be great in Florida. So, but I think you're right. You definitely can see the Lane Kiffin that is at Ole Miss today versus the Lane Kiffin that was at Tennessee is it's night and day. You wouldn't even believe it was the same person if you go back and watch old interviews and stuff. It's
Yeah.
a night and day difference, and good for him. Good for him.
Yeah. And to give credit about the story with his family being in Baton Rouge today,
Mm-hmm.
that was the first I saw that was from Wilson Alexander, who
Okay.
posted that. So I want to make sure I give him credit for that. So a lot still can happen here. I do believe he was telling the truth when he said, I'm not making a decision based on money, because the money is going to be the same.
Right.
It's really
Absolutely.
at this stage in his career where he thinks he has the greatest opportunity.
Yeah.
And so we'll see how that unfolds. Darren, I want to throw a curveball at you,
Okay.
and that is another reaction to throw in here,
Okay.
and that is I want to talk a little bit about the Oklahoma Alabama game. Uh, is Oklahoma Alabama's kryptonite?
Uh, it's interesting that I guess what makes it, you can see these series not unique to Oklahoma, Alabama, but you can see these series where you've seen them in the past where even if you believe that Alabama is clearly the better team, there is something there. There's a specific number, a specific thing that Oklahoma does that Alabama can't handle. Is it up here with the Alabama player? One of the things I draw from is. Even though going back to Ole Miss, they haven't always been like this incredible program. They've always been a strong program, with the exception of some bad years. But there was a pretty good run where the Vanderbilt Ole Miss game, or Vanderbilt actually had a lead in the series over a 7-8 year period, and there were times Ole Miss one year came into Nashville, the number 2 team in the country, and walked out with a 10-point loss. There was no reason. So I think we see those series develop between teams where, like you said, is it a kryptonite thing? And for whatever reason, right now, this Alabama Oklahoma series is that Oklahoma has their number. And it really is incredible. Even though he's not the coach anymore, it's got to be making Saban nuts, because he didn't want anybody to ever have their number for any reason. But this Oklahoma team seems to. And like I said, you've seen it historically between other teams in the past, but for whatever reason, right now, at this moment where things are, this Oklahoma team has Alabama's number.
Yeah, and I know it's unfair to compare DeBoer with Saban.
Mm-hmm.
The feeling I had with Oklahoma coming to Tuscaloosa after what happened in Norman last year, uh, a Saban coach Alabama team was, I would envision, would say, we're taking care of business.
Yeah, absolutely.
The
Absolutely.
fact that Oklahoma came in there and defensively did what they did. Alabama
Exactly.
had 3 turnovers at home.
Yeah, exactly.
What a huge win for the Sooners.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what does it mean that Alabama, do we see some weaknesses in Alabama that are going to plague them in their quest for a playoff, or even if they get in the playoffs?
Well, number one, I think they do have some things they have to correct, and you and I had a conversation this week when we were traveling. You look at the last couple of weeks for Ty Simpson, and whatever it is that's going on. Everybody talks about the yips, and are the yips real? Or I think you can look at his last 2 weeks and say the yips are real. I mean, he looks a whole lot more like the guy that played against Florida State the last 2 weeks than he has. The way he's looked in all the other games of the season, and the stats bear that out. And you can see even in the way he moves in the pocket, there's something is different right now. Whatever it is that's going on, so that's a part of it as well. This is they have at quarterback, and I also think just um, schematically, offensively, you have to look at it and say, okay, are there some things people are figuring out? They've got to really take a step back and look at some things from what we see right now, as they move toward the playoff. It could be different at some point, but you would assume they're moving toward the playoff. So, there's some things they've got to take a step back and dig into, especially offensively.
Yeah. They've got Eastern Illinois this
Yeah.
week, then the Iron Bowl, which is pretty much a must-win game for
Yeah.
them to keep their playoff hopes alive. Do you imagine DJ Durkin's going to be looking at the script, the defensive script that Venables just laid out in
Ah,
this win?
absolutely. I would say he's probably on what, maybe his fifth run already at this point of that game film. Easily at this point, he is watching everything that was done for sure. Because if I'm an Alabama fan, that's kind of a worst case scenario. If we're having some offensive struggles right now, if our offense doesn't look the same as it did a couple of weeks ago, and strong defenses really seem to kind of push our buttons and hold us down a little bit, I don't want to face that defense. I mean, for sure, I don't want to face that defense.
Auburn's got 9-1 Mercer coming to town this week, and so they got to take care of that business
Exactly.
before Alabama,
Yeah, that's right.
which I think they will.
Oh
Let's
yeah.
move. Let's move into our power rankings for this week, and I don't know if it was traveling to Baton Rouge and back, Darren. We're on the same page. We've
Again,
got the exact same power ranking. Uh,
yeah.
can we talk a little bit about A&M down 27 points at halftime? How many teams can come back from that? What
Well,
Elko is doing this year, A&M, is phenomenal.
the answer we know that in the history of the SEC, 285 teams were unable to come back from
Yeah.
that, and they were the first ones ever. That I mean, we heard that when we were together, and that stat has hung with me. I can't get over it. That's an incredible stat. And you're right, because the thing you have to talk about with that is it's not just about talent on the field. He truly is, and maybe this is the buzzword that's in my head right now. He truly is. That's a culture thing. That's not just a talent takes over. You've got to have the culture that can will that to happen, because a talented team that's not connected, that hasn't built that culture together, in a heartbeat can fall apart when you're down 30-3 and you went in expecting to win. That's the kind of stuff that you end up seeing people fighting back and forth on the sidelines, kind of stuff. But this team did not. They came out and absolutely took care of business, and just South Carolina fans. It's been a saying used against Vanderbilt for decades, reasonably and justifiably so. But boy, you're talking about finding a way to snatch defeat out of the jaws of victory. Oh, have mercy. That is tough. If you're a South Carolina fan, that is hard.
Yeah, a devastating loss for
Yep.
South Carolina. A&M held the Gamecocks scoreless in the second half.
Yep.
Tremendous defensive effort. A&M is legit. We've said it before. They're definitely a playoff team.
Absolutely.
However, the second scariest team in the SEC right now is Georgia because they are back to being Georgia.
Yeah. I tell you what, honestly, if it were not for the fact that A&M is undefeated, I don't see how there's a way to keep Georgia out of the top spot, because we have watched them over the last 2 weeks turn the corner and look like the Georgia that we were all afraid of for so many years. And I think you can very much see that they've turned that corner in their offensive production, in the way their defense is playing, on every, all three phases of the game. You can see that they've turned a corner and taken a step. As insane as that sentence sounds, that Georgia has found a way to step it up a notch, but they have, and we've literally seen it happen over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, the Bulldogs are legit as well. The physical toughness is back.
Yeah, absolutely.
And watch out for that. Ole Miss is just a good team. They had their hands full with a pesky Florida Gators squad. At the end, though, Ole Miss pulls off that 10-point victory. They're cruising right along. Question about Ole Miss. Let's say they get into the playoffs. What happens if Kiffin comes back to the Ole Miss officials before the Egg Bowl and says, my family and I, we will be leaving for Gainesville, for Baton Rouge.
Mm-hmm.
Do they let him continue to coach, or do they say, no, we don't want him staying here and trying to the potential of taking some of our players with him wherever he goes?
There's part of me that thinks the largest majority of the team came through the transfer portal anyway. And regardless if he leaves the day after the Egg Bowl or the day after a playoff loss, the window is open for the team to jump into the portal. So it's a portal world that we live in now. The days of rally everybody around the team and let's keep these guys from leaving, I don't even know how realistic that is in today's world in the transfer portal. I think, truthfully, the guys that are going with Kiffin, if he does leave, those guys already know the answer to that. And so, why not keep him there and keep him on the sidelines and put them in the best position possible? Because if you make that transition after, let's say, the Egg Bowl, no matter if it's Charlie Weiss Jr., you put as the interim head coach or whoever, that's going to be a pretty major transition in the midst of prepping for your first ever playoff. I think that would be really, really tough. So, in a portal world where it's already Wild Wild West for the most part, I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make to run him off quickly. I think it hurts your program ultimately more than it helps. So my 2 cents worth is let him stay on the sideline and coach the game, because he wants a national championship. Even if he's headed to Gainesville or Baton Rouge, he wants a national championship. So it's not like he's not going to give it his everything.
A lot of different angles to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Jumping into our power rankings this week are the Oklahoma Sooners. After that big win we just talked about a few minutes ago in Tuscaloosa, the Sooners 2 games away from possibly making the playoffs.
I think they have to be.
They've got Missouri this week, and they finish with LSU. Both those games are at home.
Yeah, which is nice. If I'm Oklahoma, I'm excited about that. That I don't care if it is an LSU team that has not had the season they want. to go to Baton Rouge when they have nothing to lose and you have everything to lose. No, there is not a scenario that I'm okay with that. I'd much rather be at home in Norman than having to make that trip. Yeah, I think they very much are. I think they have. I mean, obviously they have to win those 2 games. A 3-loss Oklahoma does not get in, but I think those 2 games are still good games. It's Missouri's a good team. LSU obviously a disappointing season, but it's not like it's this 1-10 LSU that they just beat Arkansas, so they're still an SEC team that will elevate your overall strength of schedule.
Yeah. We say the end of the season is looming, but there's a lot that's going to happen in these next 2 weeks.
Absolutely. And I would like to say one more thing with the power rankings. 4, 5, and 6 for me were all about who had the head-to-head win. I think right now at 2 losses, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Vanderbilt are pretty close. They're not all lumped there right there together, but I think they're pretty close where things stand now. And so to me, that's what Oklahoma beat Alabama, Alabama beat Vanderbilt. That's my 4, 5, and 6. I think I had to go in that order, but Vanderbilt's still at 6. And just throw that out there.
Thank you for clarifying that.
just in case anybody wondered,
We're now moving into 4 down territory. Let's look back at this past weekend, and it's time to give the dreaded brown bag. Who is your brown bag pick for the week, Darren?
My brown bag for this week is, to me, it has to be the Mississippi State defense. As much as we've cheered for Mississippi State and winning their first SEC game and the steps they've taken with Blake Shapen at quarterback, and you could see some positive things happen. But that being said, you cannot give up 300 yards of rushing. I will go as far as to say to a team, you don't need to give up 300 yards of rushing to a team that you play against, much less one person on that team. You have to stop that somehow, some way. And they did not. Ahmad Hardy, 300 yards of offense. Uh, just, 300 rushing yards, just absolutely incredible. I mean, give that dude props, man. You talking about getting it done. He was getting it done. He started that momentum, and Eli Drinkowitz said on the field after the game, it truly was a matter of you could see him getting stronger as the game was going on. You were worried, are we wearing him out? Yeah, is this going to be too much? And you could just see him get stronger, hit harder, hit the holes faster. Just it was all going right. What a night for him. But unfortunately, creates a brown bag night for that Mississippi State defense. A little bit more pound puppy than Bulldog this week, I think, unfortunately.
Oh.
Thank you. I've been working on that one for 2 days.
Whoa.
Just
Boy, that
saying.
was a sucker punch.
You give up 300 yards. I'm just saying.
Okay. Pound puppy. Wow. Oh, goodness.
How about you? Who's your brown bag?
I've got to go with South Carolina. You've got the number 3 team in the country on the ropes. You've played an incredible first half. Your head coach, Shane Beamer, exits the field with motioning with his hands, stirring up the crowd even more. If you're going to do those things, you've got to finish.
Yeah.
And they didn't. For Texas A&M, a remarkable comeback.
Yeah.
From here on out, they're never going to think they're out of the game. Not after what they just did. For South Carolina, wow, it's going to take a while to get over that. So, yeah what a colossal collapse in the second half for South Carolina.
Yeah, that could be one of those locker room killers. You take that kind of beating in the second half, that kind of a disappointment.
Darren, what did you find for us this week as far as the post-game quote of the week?
Well, it seems that we're kind of hitting the same notes this year as far as who we're looking at, but we got to go where the meat is. We can't leave meat on the bone. So we gotta go where the meat is. And I think our old pal Kirby Smart gave us some meat on the bone this week. We really put some things in perspective of what he sees in this Georgia team.
Work. I mean, we believe in being physical. I mean, we get after it. You know, we believe in what we do. We have a process. I don't know that we're doing anything different than anybody else. You know, I had other people say that their practices are similar to ours, but our kids believe in it. Our kids believe in down and dirty. They believe in, you know, the SEAL mantra of let's take them to the water. Let's see who can survive in the water and see who's going to tap out first, ring the bell, and run from the contact contest. And they believe in that. Like, they believe in the physical toughness that it takes to win games. And that has prevailed in a lot of our games, a lot of our tight ball games. That has prevailed. And the hardest part of the SEAL training is when they go after the hype phase. Everybody's hyped up before the game. Everybody's hyped up at kickoff. But when they go to that water phase and they go down and do the water torture, surf torture, it's not everybody wants it. It's not for everybody. And people start ringing the bell. And we wanted our guys to take it to the water and see who wanted to ring the bell.
I loved what he said, Darren. I think part of the quote, you know, in the overall context of everything he said, our kids believe in down and dirty. Listen to this from Kirby. They believe in the SEAL mantra of let's take them to the water and let's see who can survive. Let's see who's going to tap out first, ring the bell, run from the contact contest. They believe in the physical toughness it takes to win. That physical toughness is back at Georgia.
Absolutely.
They are in the image of their coach, Kirby Smart.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes Georgia so stinking dangerous right now. From here on out, they've got the toughness, the physicality back.
Yeah, it's going to be. Yeah, I mean, when you hear him talk like that, it's just like, wow, how can they truly? You're looking at it going, huh, wow, they really have stepped it up. They really are uglier and meaner. How did that even happen? But they've done it. So
Oh yeah,
kind of
yeah.
crazy.
If you're going to beat Georgia this year, you're going to have to be willing to take a punch or more than one
Oh
punch
yeah,
because
absolutely.
they're going to deliver.
Yeah, you're going to be in a no pun intended or maybe pun intended dogfight where even if you were to win, you will still next day your body will feel like you lost. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be an absolute fight for sure.
Let's move on to this coming weekend and our sure thing pick of the week. Darren, who's yours?
I refuse to pick any of the cupcake games. I'm just not going to acknowledge that Alabama might be a sure thing over Eastern Illinois or Georgia might be a sure thing over UNC Charlotte or just Charlotte, whatever their name is. So I'm going to not necessarily go out on a limb, but I think I'm going to acknowledge some momentum. I think I'm going to go with our good friends from Oklahoma as my sure thing pick. Yes, Missouri has a running game, but Oklahoma has a defense. I, I think the 7.5 that they're favored is a good. I think that's a good number. So I think they'll cover that. I think it is a sure thing that Missouri comes to Norman and gets back on the plane after not having a very good day. I think Oklahoma is a sure thing in this one. How about you?
You know, I like that pick so much, Darren. I'm going to join you with picking the Sooners.
Nice.
Drinkwitch is going to come in and try to be the spoiler.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's got the squad that can do that against this Oklahoma defense. Now, I'm very interested to see how Hardy, the running back from
Yeah,
Missouri, how he
absolutely.
does. That's going to be a great clash. Of course, you know, starting in the trenches, can the
Mm-hmm.
Missouri O line handle that vaunted
Exactly.
Oklahoma defensive line? They're legit.
Exactly.
They're
Yeah.
extremely tough up front.
Yep.
Too much is riding on this game for Oklahoma. They can
Yeah.
smell the potential playoffs. They know what they have to do, win out. So I would be shocked. I would be shocked if they don't come in and take care of business. I don't think they're going to let Missouri hang around.
I agree. I agree.
How about your upset pick of the week?
I don't have a clue. Like I said, we don't have many games to acknowledge. I am not picking Kentucky over Vanderbilt, although I could go reverse psychology and kind of throw,
Look at that.
But that only leaves a belief in the impossible. Well, almost the impossible. Because to say that Arkansas is going to beat Texas would be a belief in the impossible. And I'm not willing to go there. Although, yeah, anything is possible. I guess just for the sake of picking an upset, I don't see a way in this world that it's happened, but it's happened before in Gainesville. I guess I'll take the Florida Gators as a 4.5 point underdog in Gainesville against the Volunteers. I know Volunteer fans are going to think that's personal because I'm a Vanderbilt fan. But, I mean, when you look at our options here, I mean, again, I know Mercer's 9-1, but I'm not picking them to go to Jordan Hare and win. Sorry. So I think that's the only option that's kind of left. So I'm picking the Gators over the Vols.
Volunteers fans, it is always personal when Darren picks against you. Don't believe anything he says. He's trying to be nice. It is always personal.
I did have someone ask me why the thing with the Vols this week, just for the record. It's like, well, I'm a Vanderbilt fan.
Well, anyway. You're not going to like my upset pick, Darren. As I look at the list, Kentucky, a big win against Florida. Have they finally got things together? I don't know. I don't know if they've got things together enough to go into Vanderbilt and win. But I'm going to go ahead and pick them because my fear for Vanderbilt, and this will not come from Clark Lee. He's not going to underestimate Kentucky.
Right.
But I'm concerned about if Diego comes into this game with the mindset that it's Kentucky, but we might as well be playing Alabama or Oklahoma or A&M or Georgia, then they're going to be fine. But if he comes into this saying, Kentucky's horrible, let's just get through this game and get to our bigger goals, then Vanderbilt's going to be in trouble. So I think there's a slight chance that if Kentucky gets Vanderbilt on a day when they're not focused on taking care of business, they could very easily pull off an upset here.
And there's absolute validity to everything you're saying because this team, even though they've done some incredible things in their victories, has also shown this in their losses. I mean, Georgia State last year was absolutely unacceptable. We didn't know what level this team was at yet because the Alabama game had not happened yet, but that's still an unacceptable loss. Honestly, we've seen some things, not taking care of the ball. I think in a normal circumstance, the Auburn game should not have been as exciting as it was. I think there were a few things that kind of skewed that. But if Diego comes into this game thinking about playoffs and his Heisman campaign, this Kentucky team could make him regret that. I think you're spot on with that. I will, even though I don't like it, I will acknowledge it.
You mentioned earlier, talking about another game, when a team comes in to a game and they have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
They're dangerous.
Yep. Absolutely.
So we'll see.
And they're fighting for postseason. They're 5-5. They're fighting for postseason.
Yeah.
For at least a bowl.
Yeah. It's still a better chance than Mercer going into Auburn and winning.
Agree completely.
Let's talk a little bit about our game of the week this year in the SEC, or this week in the SEC this year. Wow. Now, that's like before New Year's, we do the season in review.
Yeah, exactly.
Unfortunately, it's an 11 o'clock game. Goodness.
How many of these have we had as the game of the week?
Huh?
How many of these have we had as the game of the week? We've had several 11 o'clock games, have we not?
I mean, it's like it's a Big 12 game.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
here we go. Oklahoma was done with these when they came to the SEC.
some people still think Missouri's in the Big Ten, but anyway, that's
You know, when you look at the numbers, Darren, they're very statistically even
yeah,
here,
yeah.
from the overall records to the points per game to the points
Mhm.
allowed per game, turnover margin. I just get the feeling though right now that Oklahoma is on a different level the way
Agree.
that they're playing compared to Missouri. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree completely. I tell you, the only thing that truthfully gives me pause is, both of us have already picked this game because we believe it's the sure thing pick. The only thing that gives me a little bit of pause is this Missouri defense is not talked about enough. At this point in the season, to be allowing less than 20. I know it's 19.9, but still less than 20 points a game. That that is not a lucky defense. That is a defense that knows what they're doing and gets things done on a week in and week out. So that's the thing that kind of concerns you because Oklahoma has had their struggles. It's always on the offensive ball, for the most part, on the offensive side of the ball when Oklahoma struggles. So that is a little concerning. But again, outside of that one little piece, both of them at a -2 turnover margin, basically like to take care of the ball. I think it's going to be about everything we just talked about in where is Oklahoma right now as opposed to where is Missouri right now. And I think that gives Oklahoma the edge. But I do, like we've said about a couple of the games this season, I think it's going to be a fun game to watch
Yeah.
for
Yeah, it's a
sure.
good way to start the Saturday off.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And something good that you can do to help us before we wrap up this show is hit that subscribe button. That means a lot to us. When you
Absolutely.
subscribe, it helps us to continue to do what we do, to keep it free. Of course, we love to talk about football, particularly SEC
Mm-hmm.
football, and we're glad that you are here with us on this journey. Enjoy the games this weekend, and we look forward to be back with you next week. Until then, y'all be sure to take care.
Have a great week.